is going on, guys? It is WrestleLamia here, back with another episode. Have you ever heard the phrase, the grass is greener on the other side of the fence? Well, here are 10 instances where big name wrestlers jump from the WWF to WCW only to see their careers go from sugar to shit. Number 1. Smash. Veteran wrestler Barry Darsow went to school with future wrestling stars such as Nikita Koloff, John Nord, Kurt Hennig, Rick Rude, Tom Zenk and Brady Boone before making a name as Crusher Khrushchev, an American wrestler who betrayed his country by aligning with the Soviet Union. A run in Jim Crockett Promotions with Ivan and Nikita Koloff provided Darsow with national exposure, and he was signed to the WWF, replacing Randy Coley as Demolition Axe because too many fans recognized the previous Axe by his former character Moondog Rex. Following his successful run in the WWF as Demolition Smash, Darsow transitioned into singles action as the Repo Man, a heel whose debut saw him get the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase's $1 Million belt back from Virgil. Repo Man's last WWF hurrah was a brief program where he repossessed Randy Macho Man Savage's cowboy hat. Darsow then worked in WCW as the Blacktop Bully, a gimmick which seemed to see Darsow as an angry trucker. The Bully worked a feud with Dustin Rhodes until their infamous King of the Road match at 1995's uncensored pay-per-view, where he and Dustin wrestled on a flatbed truck as it was driven around aimlessly, similar to WCW's booking at the time. Both men would be fired for violating WCW's no blading policy, a move seen by some as a very poor excuse to fire them. Darsow then returned to WCW in 1997, working the curious, and by curious we mean stupid, gimmick of Mr. Hole-in-One, a heel golfer. The gimmick was tweaked to putting Barry Darsow until WCW threw up its hands and gave up, changing Darsow back to the Blacktop Bully. Ultimately, the poor choice of gimmicks never lived up to his days in the WWF as Smash. Number 2. Bret Hart. After the excellence of execution passed on a chance to join WCW earlier, as rumour has it Hart was actually considered as the third man for the debut of the New World Order at 1996's Bash at the Beach pay-per-view, he left the WWF when Vince McMahon told Hart he could no longer honour a 20-year deal he'd signed the Hitman to, then kicked him to the curb following 1997's Montreal Screwjob. Hart's arrival in WCW was arguably the company's biggest signing since landing Hulk Hogan in 1994, as Hart was an undeniable main eventer in the WWF. However, Hart's debut at Starrcade 97 was an ominous sign of his future in the company, where Hart was booked into an angle that had everyone wondering what happened. The Hitman left his ringside seat to help Sting overcome a fast count by crooked referee Nick Patrick during the Stinger's match with Hollywood Hogan for the WCW Championship. The only problem was, there was no fast count, so Hart ended up looking foolish when he took out Patrick and refereed the rest of the match. Rumour has it that the Hulkster persuaded Patrick to make a normal count instead of a fast count, thereby sabotaging the angle. From there, the Hitman worked a program with Ric Flair, then aligned himself with the NWO at a time when the organisation had clearly played itself out. Although Hart won the WCW Heavyweight Championship twice, the United States Championship 4 times, and the WCW World Tag Team Championship once, his WCW career was surprisingly lackluster. Whether you believe backstage politics were to blame for holding Hart back, there's no denying his career in WCW was largely forgettable, except for the match he had against Chris Benoit and the angle where he wore a steel plate under a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey when Goldberg speared him. As bad as Hart's run in WCW was, it was even worse because wrestler Bill Goldberg effectively ended Hart's career when he accidentally kicked Hart straight in the head. Number 3. Marty Jannetty. Fans often look back at the post-Ruckus career of Marty Jannetty, looking at him as the equivalent of Jim the Anvil Neidhart, a successful tag team wrestler who just couldn't match the singles success of his partner. In Jannetty's case, he received a good push following the breakup of the Rockers, feuding with Shawn Michaels, including a match at 1993's Royal Rumble. Jannetty was released following allegations he'd wrestled the match under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Jannetty claims in a shoot video that he was merely tired and that Shawn Michaels spread rumours that Jannetty was drunk. After Kurt Hennig helped Jannetty get his job back, Marty won the Intercontinental Championship from Shawn Michaels on an episode of Raw before losing it back several weeks later. Jannetty's career stalled from there, whether it was his team with the 1-2-3 Kid or his ridiculous team with Al Snow as the New Rockers. His failings as a single wrestler in the WWF would still be nothing compared to his WCW run in 1998, as he mostly served as enhancement talent. Rumours persist that the personal demons held Jannetty's career back, and although he can't be discounted, we've also seen that WCW didn't always use WWF talent effectively. Number 4. Ted DiBiase. The $1 Million Man's WWF run ended after DiBiase injured his neck whilst wrestling in Japan. That didn't stop him from managing though, and he formed the $1 Million Corporation, a heel faction that plagued the WWF during the mid-90s. DiBiase then jumped ship to WCW in 1996 when he was signed to play Trillionaire Ted, the New World Order's financier and spokesman. However, that changed when Eric Bischoff betrayed WCW and joined the NWO as their spokesman. According to an interview with Wrestling101.com, DiBiase discussed his departure from WCW. Eric took the credit for the NWO, but that wasn't his idea. The NWO had already been done in Japan, so they had copied something that had already been done. It was a good idea, but originally I was supposed to be the mouthpiece of the NWO, and the reality is I think Eric saw how it was getting over and he saw how he could put himself in the role that he had hired before. As each week went by, pretty soon Eric isn't the announcer anymore. He becomes part of the NWO, and I just went to him one day and I told him, I'm not just going to walk out there and be Hulk Hogan's Virgil. You hired me to be the spokesperson for this, so if that's not what I'm gonna do, you can send me home. The reason I said that was because they had to pay me one way or the other. Because I had a contract where they had to pay me for 3 years. Number 5. The Big Boss Man. Real-life corrections officer Ray Traylor transitioned into a real-life sports entertainer portraying a corrections officer, the Big Boss Man, a big man who certainly delivered in the ring. The Boss Man got a huge push from the start, working a singles feud with Hulk Hogan where he beat up the Hulkster during an episode of the Brother Love Show, showing that not even Hogan was above the law. Shortly after, the Boss Man formed a fearsome tag team with Akeem as the Twin Towers, feuding with Hogan and his Mega Powers partner, Randy Savage. Eventually, the Boss Man turned face, enforcing law and order in the WWF. WCW, in their infinite stupidity, figured they could bring Traylor in as his WWF character, forgetting that the WWF's legal team was right behind him. So it was no surprise that the WWF's legal team threatened to sue WCW's pants off. The result was Traylor underwent several gimmick changes, transforming from the Boss to the Guardian Angel, a character inspired by the crime prevention group, the Guardian Angels. After that flopped, Traylor went back to his Big Bubba Rogers name, joining the Dungeon of Doom before betraying them to join the NWO. Eventually, Rogers left the NWO and used the name Ray Traylor before heading back to the WWF for memorable programs such as the Hell in a Kennel match with Al Snow and a feud with the Big Show that saw the Boss Man steal the Big Show's father's coffin during a funeral. Perhaps we should do a video on 10 big name wrestlers who fared worse in WCW and even worse when they returned to the WWF. Number 6. Ahmed Johnson. Boasting a powerful physique, Tony Norris quickly climbed the ladder of success in the WWF, debuting as Ahmed Johnson in 1995. Impressively, he was the first African American wrestler to win the Intercontinental Championship, doing so less than a year later at 1996's King of the Ring pay-per-view. Johnson left the WWF for WCW in late 1999, joining Stevie Ray in his feud against former Harlem Heat partner Booker T. Now known as Big T, he formed a team with Stevie Ray called Harlem Heat 2000, presumably to reflect the new millennium, but more likely to reflect the team's combined weight, as Norris had gained so much weight he looked like he swallowed Rosie O'Donnell. Harlem Heat 2000 proved as successful as Price Waterhouse's handling of the Academy Awards envelopes, and so Big T was released due to weight issues. Number 7. The Ultimate Warrior. The Ultimate Warrior has been a controversial figure for much of his career, perceived as a main eventer but plagued by his personal idiosyncrasies. That didn't stop WCW from bringing him into a feud with Hollywood Hulk Hogan and the NWO in 1998. The Warrior worked less than a handful of matches, leading to a main event rematch at Halloween Havoc against Hulk Hogan, the only rematch since their classic at WrestleMania 6. Wrestling legend has it that Hogan asked WCW to bring the Warrior in so he could get the win over him. The result was the Bizarro World version of their Mania match, a match so bad it earned the Wrestling Observer newsletter's Worst Match of the Year award. The Warrior made an appearance on Nitro before running off into the sunset to collect his paycheck. Number 8. Rick Martel. Veteran wrestler Rick Martel is someone who worked just about every major promotion, distinguishing himself in singles and tag team action. Whether it was his reign as AWA World Heavyweight Champion in the mid-80s or his reign as WWF Tag Team Champion, Martel was an international star. His heel run as the Model seemed to invigorate his career, proving he still had plenty to offer. In 1997, Martel debuted in WCW, feuded with Booker T and eventually won the WCW Television Championship. Unfortunately, less than a week later, Martel's career ended abruptly when his leg hit a ring rope, tearing a ligament, fracturing his leg and damaging cartilage. Number 9. Davey Boy Smith. Following the Montreal screwjob, Davey Boy Smith bought out his WWF contract to join Hart Foundation's stablemate in WCW. Sadly, the Bulldog's run was a lesson in mediocre booking, as WCW failed to use him right. Any chance of succeeding in WCW ended when Smith suffered a freak accident at 1998's Halloween Havoc, injuring his back when he fell on a trapdoor in the ring prepared for the Ultimate Warrior to use later that night. The Bulldog's back injury worsened into a spinal infection, with WCW firing him via FedEx. And number 10. Sunny. Tammy Sunny Sytch revolutionized the industry when she worked with the WWF, showcasing her sexy body and attitude to the delight of fans, even when she worked as a heel. At one point, Sunny was one of the most downloaded women on the internet. Unfortunately, today's stars often become yesterday's news, and that's exactly what happened when Sable entered the WWF, replacing Sunny as the Federation's #1 woman. Personal demons and alleged no-shows at events led her to be released in 1998. Following her time in ECW, Sytch entered WCW, debuting at 2000 Spring Stampede pay-per-view to help Chris Candido win the Cruiserweight Championship. Sytch feuded with Valet Paisley, then teamed with Candido against Crowbar and Daphne. Not exactly a high-profile feud. Sytch's seemingly ever-present personal demons resulted in her being shown the door. As you can see, there are no guarantees when a wrestler jumps from one promotion to the other. But what wrestlers do you think should have been added to the list? Please leave your comments down below. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.